Hello everyone, this is Ray Gano, and you're listening to PZ Radio. How is everybody doing out there? Listen, I have got a really special show for you. Actually, this is going to be two shows, because what I did is I interviewed a gentleman. His name was Fernando Aguirre, and he is the author of an excellent book called Surviving the Economic Collapse. Now, he lives in Argentina, and so I got to spend some time with him, and we spent about 2 hours, and it was a really, really good interview. So what I'm doing is I'm going to split the 2-hour interview up so that one hour is going to be this week, and the other hour is going to be next week. So it's a pretty in-depth interview. We talked about just about everything. My goodness, it was a great time, great interview. Incredible information, folks. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to jump right into this. But before I do, Fernando, aka Furfall, is also going to be sharing this on his website and possibly picking it up on some of his other websites. So let me introduce myself. My name is Ray Gano, and I'm the Executive Director of Prophesyne, and our website is www.prophezine, and that stands for Prophecy Magazine. Our website deals with Bible prophecy and world events. We're a news website. We keep an eye on what's going on in the news out there globally, not just only here in the United States and everything, but we focus a lot on the Middle East. We've actually been focusing a lot on what's going on in China. But I primarily keep an eye on the economy, global economics, technology, the Middle East, precious metals. And then we have other authors who write for us, and other journalists and everything that submit their articles to Prophesyne, and we have them on our website as well. So we're kind of a clearinghouse for Bible prophecy, world events, global news, and so forth. So I have a whole spectrum of people who write for me. So come check us out, www.prophezine.com. And in fact, what we're adding to the website is a preparedness section. Right now, I've got a bunch of how-to videos up there right now, and I'm going to be adding my articles and other things up there as we continue to grow and build. We just moved into this new website. We are on a new platform, new server, new software, completely new everything. And so it's kind of a steep learning curve. And every day that you come to the website, you're going to see new things, new articles, new information constantly growing. We have a very active forum, and it's going really good. We have a preparedness section in our forum, and a lot of people are jumping in there right now. In fact, the hot topic right now is canned meats and trying to get some seed co-op going for trading seeds and everything. So it's a pretty good community. Come check it out. And again, I'm going to try to have Fernando share some of his stuff, so I'm going to put maybe some of his stuff up on our Prophesyne website. And I know already I've had some of my articles on his website. He's used some of my stuff. So I'm really looking forward to expanding and building our relationship here. And I'm really looking forward to getting Fernando back on the air and doing a Q&A session. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And so if you have any more questions or any questions at all, again, remember to email them to me. That's info@prophezine.com, info@prophezine.com. So with much further ado, I want to just jump right into this. This is a full, fun-packed hour with tons of information. So my name is Ray Gano, and you're listening to PZ Radio. Back after this.
This is Todd Strandberg of Rapture Ready, and you are listening to PZ Radio.
Hey folks, Ray here. Listen, I want to talk to you briefly about our latest product, Teotihuacan, the city version. What is this? It is a data DVD chock full of files, ebooks, and videos that will help you weather the storm. Folks, if you live in the city or live in the suburbs, in fact, if you live anywhere, you can use this great data DVD. There is just a ton of information on here. We've really focused on folks who live in the city and even folks who live in an apartment, because I've been getting a lot of emails. Hey Ray, what do I do? I live in an apartment. Well folks, we have tips on starting apartment gardens. You know, utilizing the space on your patios, utilizing the space in your windows, doing window gardens, growing vegetables in containers. You know, we even have files, a folder here dedicated to seniors and to handicapped. Even how to defend yourself with a cane. We've got some videos on that. How to pluck a pigeon. You know, A lot of people call those flying rats, but hey, in hard times, you may need to eat those. How to skin a squirrel. How many folks know how to do that? Also, urban foraging, 6-day mobile resupply bag, communication basics, even, phone security. Because I think that what's going to happen is that things are going to get tough, and we as Christians may need to go underground, may have an underground church. And so in doing that, we may need to set up some forms of security, communications, and so forth so that we can stay in contact with each other. All that is here on Teotihuacan City version. What am I asking? I'm asking $30, folks. $30 for this great DVD. And in fact, if you order our first version, Teotihuacan, the first CD, with Teotihuacan, the city version, $50. We're giving you $10 off. So get them. This is chock full of information. As you know, folks, I am one who believes that we do not have much time here in this nation and that we are going to default on our loans. When that happens, this nation will fall into a third world status. We will see riots, we will see crime, we will see all kinds of havoc wreaking here in this nation. We need to be ready. Otherwise, if you're not ready, become a victim of the storm. So folks, please consider purchasing Teotihuacan, the city version. Not only do you help yourself, you're helping Tracy and I here at Prophecy. Go to our website, www.prophezine.com, and scroll down a little bit. You'll see a big CD right there, city version, Teotihuacan. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hey everybody, this is Ray Gano, and you're listening to PZ Radio. How's everybody doing out there? Listen, I have got an incredible guest, and I am so excited to have him on with us right now. We've got Fernando Aguirre, and I don't know if I said that right. In fact, I know I didn't. But we have Fernando here. His AK name is Furfall, and some of you guys may have seen him on the websites out there already if you hang out in some of the survival and preparedness blogs. He also has his own blog and website, and in fact, he has one of the best books out there on preparedness and survival that I know of. I personally got a copy. The book is called Surviving the Economic Collapse. He survived, or he's actually still living in Argentina. In December 2001, Argentina went through a horrible economic collapse, and he lived through it. He's still living through it. And if you remember a lot of articles and things that I write about, I am always bringing up Argentina as a model of where we in America are going. You look at what Argentina did, and you can see that America is currently doing it. The same, almost exactly same steps that Argentina took to financial collapse, America is taking today. And it's not just our current president's fault or anything. It's been a couple presidents and a couple administrations and a couple Congresses and Senate and everything. People have been making bad decisions who have been in power, and they've been leading us down a bad path. And so what I want to do is I want to welcome Fernando. Hey, Fernando, how you doing?
How are you doing, Ray? Everything okay?
Oh, good. So what's the weather like down there in Argentina right now?
It's pretty hot right now, but we're getting by with air conditioner and that kind of stuff, so it's pretty hot.
Okay, cool. What's going on down there right now? In fact, any news or anything just really quickly?
Yeah, well, we're going through some of the typical things you see after an economy collapses and the authorities don't want to accept what's going on. For example, one of the things we're seeing is that we're running out of money.
Wow.
In terms of cash. Because here people use mostly cash since they don't trust banks anymore. Mm-hmm. So we all use lots of cash, and due to inflation, money is flying out of your pocket. So we're starting to need bigger bills. We need 200 pesos bills, 500 pesos bills, and our authorities don't want to do that because they think that's a way of recognizing there's inflation.
That's awfully interesting there. So basically then what could happen, I'm sure you saw pictures of the Zimbabwe, that $100 trillion bill. So is that the same path that you guys may be going down?
Well, we have gone that way before. In fact, I'm holding in my hands right now some old pesos, and we've reached 100,000 pesos.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah, a few decades ago, we've gone through this before. We had pesos, then we had australes, and now we have pesos again. We started with the pesos. We ended up with a 500,000 peso bill. After that, they just erased all those zeros and started with australes. And once australes also got out of control and we ended up having 100,000 australes bills, we started with pesos again. And it's going all over again once more.
Well, actually, let's maybe back up a little bit here for people who don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but back in the 80s something, Argentina was a very, very wealthy nation. And in fact, you guys were so wealthy that if you worked at McDonald's, you were making some good money. I think it was you in your book that you said that if you were a manager at McDonald's, your average income was something like $10,000 a month in U.S.
I don't remember. No, it wasn't McDonald's, but a good managing position in a company. A manager that was making a good amount of money. He was making in a big firm $10,000 a month, something like that. $15,000 a month was about. I mean, for the average middle class person, between $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 a month was the ordinary salary. And what people saw, what the middle class Argentine people saw was that when we traveled to USA for holidays, we realized that we were making more money than what we would be earning doing that same job in USA.
So you guys come over here like Disney World or
we had more money than you.
And you'd be spending like crazy.
Yeah. In fact, there used to be a phrase in I think it was in Texas and some of the southern states a few years ago, maybe in the 70s, something like that. There was a phrase that was as rich as an Argentine.
Yeah. Yep. I've heard it. Actually,
that's because during some of the worst times in global terms after the Second World War, Argentina was doing very well because we were selling crops and food to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's how we gained the reputation as the breadbasket of the world during those years.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were making a lot of money. The average folk was doing well.
Yeah. So let's kind of back up here a little bit. How did, in December 2001, you guys all of a sudden, your banks closed, and you were basically thrown into a third world situation almost overnight? Can you kind of give my listeners a little bit of a history lesson here of what took place and what brought you to where you are today, or what was the cause? What happened?
The situation was that we were in very deep in debt. And that's something Americans can relate to as well. Being in awful types of debt. The difference is that we weren't getting into debt ourselves, the individuals of the population. Our state was getting into debt for us.
Yeah.
They were spending more money than they had, and we ended up defaulting on our debt, the greatest default ever. And just before the December 2001 riots, the situation was already bad, but no one expected banks to actually end up closing and keeping people's money. That was something people just weren't expecting. We knew things were bad, but until we saw that happening, we saw the looting, we saw the banks suddenly closing and a limit being enacted for how much money you could get out of ATMs. Before all that, people sure didn't see it coming.
Yeah. So what happened? One of the things that I'm speculating on, and I'm telling people that might happen, is what I'm calling bank day or bank holiday, where the banks will close, the money will be devalued somehow or split, or in your case, actually, you guys actually changed currencies from the peso to the Australia or Austria.
That wasn't now. It was before.
Yeah.
This time we didn't change currencies.
Okay.
We suffered an inflationary process, but we didn't change currency. What happened, therefore, is that all of a sudden the prices started going up like nuts. We ended up seeing suddenly 100% increase in prices. So your money, the money you had in your pocket that you had earned that month, it was melting as you waited.
Well, you were telling a story in your book about how you went into a hardware store for a hammer. Do me a favor, explain that one. Give that story.
Yes, I was just getting married and I needed to do some home repairs, and I went to the equivalent of a Home Depot, a big store full of hardware. And I was buying a drill that was worth like 34 pesos, something like that. And by the time I picked it up, got a few other things and went to the cash register, it had gone up in price.
Holy mackerel.
And I started talking, and I'm talking about like 50%, 100% increase in price, something crazy like that, not just a couple of cents. And I remember looking at the woman, and she said, yeah, well, if you saw it for that price, well, let's go back and check it out. And when we went over there, the price had changed. Someone had already stickered a different price over it, but if you started pulling out the different prices, you could actually go back to my older one, the one I had. And that's something that happens a lot here. You see that they don't even bother removing the old one. They just put the new one on top of it. And sometimes you see these little thick layers of different prices. Wow. And it's interesting to go back and see how they've been changing. So
your currency was basically losing value by the minute then.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. And see, that's something that I think that might happen here in the U.S. I believe that with our debt to income ratio, we've got so much debt right now, we're never going to be able to pay it off. And what's going to eventually happen is that we're going to default on our debt, just like Argentina did. And when that happens, then we're going to have a bank holiday just like Argentina did. In fact, Fernando, what happened in the first 30 days, 90 days? What happened, the first 7 days or that day that the banks closed? What happened?
Well, as you can expect, people were very mad, so they took the streets and they started protesting, looting, and during those days it was complete madness. The best thing to do was stay put in your house and not go out. I know that some people, especially some of the tourists that were here, they look at it differently. They went out and had fun and said, well, we're participating in a historic moment. So their experience of the same situation is different from mine. I see that as a terrible thing happening to my country.
Yeah.
They see it as a fun moment during one of their holidays, something to tell their friends about. So perspectives do change a lot depending on if it's affecting you or not. During those days, of course, banks were closed and people were protesting on the streets. You had to be careful not to go out when stores were being looted. Some weren't, and in those you just used cash. Plastic money was, of course, no longer in use, and it went by for months before they started using credit cards again. So if you didn't have cash with you, that was a problem. So it is a good advice to have a good amount of cash for those first days when stores are still open, but plastic money isn't accepted anymore.
So ATMs weren't open, and they weren't taking debit cards or credit cards. Yeah, what about checks or something?
They use other tricks. Maybe they leave it open, and if a reporter asks a politician, hey, what's going on with the ATM? They will look at you as if you were nuts and explain to you, well, there's not a single problem. What are you talking about? But they don't put money into it, so they are working, but they are empty.
Yeah. So cash was at a premium then.
Cash was hard to come by. I remember I had a few dollars, and as I said before, I was just getting married, and since there wasn't much cash, I could haggle with. I was buying a mattress, a bed. And since there wasn't enough cash and I had a few dollars, I could haggle and got this nice mattress for half the price that was being offered before.
Wow.
It gives you a little leverage.
Because you had cash on hand.
Because I had cash, and since no one else had, they weren't making any sales almost, so you were in a good position to negotiate.
Yeah. So was this kind of a dangerous time and everything when all this was going down?
Yeah, well, we were in state of siege. That was declared military law was declared, and you weren't supposed to go out after 8 or something like that. You weren't supposed to gather in more than 3 people.
Wow.
Yes, you had to be careful. That's why I'm saying during those times, especially when you know what's going on and you know it's not going to be an indefinite situation, it's best to stay put and not risk it.
So
one of the things that surprised me as well was that no one was spending any unnecessary money. I remember that if you were walking around your neighborhood, you maybe saw a fence that was painted just half the way, and the guy didn't have enough paint to finish, so he left it as well. He wasn't going to the store and buying another can to finish painting the fence.
Yeah, he was holding on to his money.
Yeah,
for serious purchases and everything. Now, would it be wise for people then? Because this is something that I believe that's going to take place in America. So, in my opinion, I think it would be wise to have at least 30 days worth of food, 60, 90, even more days worth of food on hand, just so that you can stay home and not be part of the chaos. What happened to you? Did you have the foresight to have food on hand and everything?
Yeah, I didn't have as much food as I would have liked, but I had enough, and I didn't have any problem. The only thing was that as time went by, food prices were going up a lot. So soon enough, meat, for example, it was very expensive. Of course, when you see that, you wish you had bought even more food. So that's why one of the few recommendations I make to everyone is have lots of food. You can never have too much food because no matter what, you're going to be using it anyway. So if the economy collapses or not, if it takes more or less time, all those variables are very hard to predict sometimes. But what isn't at all hard to predict, and what you can know for sure, is that you're going to be using food, want it or not.
So, I mean, did you have all these stores of this fancy dehydrated, freeze-dried, 50-year canned food or something? Or, I mean, what did you eat?
No, we don't have any of that. What I did was simply buy more of the staples that I know have a long shelf life. Canned food. The ordinary canned food you find in supermarkets usually has a good amount of shelf life. A couple of years easily in some of the most common food types. Then you have rice, wheat. You have lots of alternatives to work with, and organize yourself a good nutritious diet to work with as time goes by.
Yeah. So what did you eat personally?
Well, we were eating lots of pasta because that's cheap. And with frozen vegetables and tuna, pies. We weren't eating that much meat because, as I said before, meat was getting pretty expensive. So since we were newlyweds in a tight budget, we had to make some compromise.
Yeah. So what was it? Now let me ask: were grocery stores open during all this time and everything?
Yeah, the thing is that all of a sudden, if they saw a group of people that looked as if they were about to rule the place, they would end up closing. I was actually in one of these supermarkets when this took place, and we saw this awful horde of people coming our way, and we saw the workers of the supermarket making barricades with the shopping carts. And they went out and negotiated with the guys and ended up surrendering some of the food in food bags. They left them there in the parking lot so they wouldn't loot the place. So that was something that happened with certain frequency in the suburbs. Those situations where they try to get by as best as possible. I know of some cases in which houses that were left empty were completely ransacked and looted. Even the toilets were taken from them.
Wow.
So yeah, that's one of the things that you realize. Sometimes you hear people recommending light control and pretend there's no one in the house. And I immediately remember that situation and think, why would you want people to think that your house is empty when empty houses with no one in them are the first ones to be targeted during civil unrest. There's hardly anything easier than breaking into a house that no one is defending and no one is in it.
So in these first 30 to 90 days, did you see crime go up then?
Well, I think that 34 people got killed for some reason or another. there was a good amount of crime, and especially since that idea of committing a crime means getting punished, since that idea was eliminated because you clearly saw that the authorities had no control in the situation, since you clearly saw that police was unable to stop what was going on. During those days of anarchy, lots of accounts got settled between people that aren't good guys exactly, and crime went rampant. That's why I'm saying that during those times it's fair to stay put, stay home.
Yeah. Now there's something interesting here. The police. How I know that the police would be going through the same thing that my family would be in an economic downfall, if I'm correct. Why didn't some of the police take the side of the people, or did some of the police take the side of the people with the economic collapse and everything taking place? Because they're in the same boat too, or are they?
They're underpaid. They have an awful reputation because, and it is true that many of them are very corrupt, and I have some friends that are police officers, and I have great respect for them, but even themselves are going to admit that police here is very corrupt, way more than you could possibly imagine. But I saw all sorts of things, from a single police officer defending a small supermarket, maybe risking his life to protect someone else's property, and he successfully managed to do so. You saw others that weren't helping out at all. You saw others that, I know one case where the sheriff in charge of a police department, when a person I know dropped by to see what was going on, he actually offered him some tear gas grenades to take with him.
Wow.
In case he needed them. So you saw lots of different things. Police officers that were doing more than their job would have asked them to do. Police officers that were taking advantage of the situation as well. It's very hard to paint everything with one single brush, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, mayhem, chaos, rioting, how long did that initial time frame last?
Well, that also depended on where it was taking place. In the capital district, I think it lasted 3-4 days. In some other parts of town, it lasted for about a week. In the provinces, it went on for a bit more, a couple of weeks maybe, but still sporadically you would hear of looting taking place, even months after December 2001. All of a sudden, some of the people protesting for state aid and food packages and such, all of a sudden they would get incentivated among themselves and started looting a store nearby, or break into different little stores nearby and take whatever they needed, or even more than that. You saw, of course, something that, as you saw during Katrina, people that ended up going with their nice 4x4 trucks and loading them up with TVs and fancy stuff that they didn't actually need. So that's a breaking point when people feel there's no more punishment for their crimes. That lots of people that are being held, but that deal of civility, they show their true colors.
Yeah. So what you stayed home, or did you have a job at that time or anything, or you and your wife, you were newly married and everything? So when all this was going on, what did you do? Call in sick, or just not go to work, or what did you do?
Well, I was in school, so, and it was like I don't know how it's the equivalent of the summer break.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we weren't doing, I could easily stay home and just take care of the wedding stuff.
Yeah.
After that, when I started to work, well, you didn't have much of an option. You still had to go to work. And even today, so many years afterwards, many of the same things that happened back then keep on happening. The not knowing if you're going to be able to make it to a job on time because there's either protests, because the trains break down and they're not working. One thing that happens a lot here is that, especially after 2001, people committed suicide by throwing themselves under the train.
Wow.
And yeah,
Wow.
Imagine people that lost all their money because of this, or lost a significant amount of it, and ended up getting broke and not being able to sustain their families.
Well, let me
understandable.
Let me ask this, because this is something that people, I understand it, and you've seen it. How do people lose their money? And for example, I'm assuming that, let's say they have 100,000 pesos in the bank. Well, due to inflation, what happens is your buying power is basically toasted. So that $100,000 really doesn't buy you too much. Is that how people lost money? What happened?
Yeah. First of all, you have that. Instantly, you lost 66% of your purchasing value. If you had, for example, most people here had dollars in their bank accounts. All of a sudden, they were told that they had pesos, and the peso was suddenly worth 3 pesos $1 and 4 pesos $1. So you ended up losing 66% or more of your money.
Wow.
During some periods of time when $1 4 to 1, 4 pesos $1, as it is now, almost 4 pesos $1, you ended up losing 75% of your savings.
Wow.
And you have to understand that people maybe they had a business, they were going already through some bad times, and were counting with that money to save their business. All of a sudden seeing that, or people that you have the other side of the coin. You had people that maybe bought a machinery that was evaluated in dollars. They bought it with pesos when it was 1 peso $1. All of a sudden, they had something that was still worth its money in dollars, and they had managed that way to save their savings. For example, if you bought a car just before the banks ended up closing and we devaluated it on our debt, if you bought a car before those times, the car was still worth the same amount of dollars. People would have to pay more pesos for it. So that's what you see people doing now even. People that have a bit of money putting that into a car because it's their own way of preserving those savings.
So what
those that have more money end up buying real estate, which is another way, but you need more money for that.
So what basically you're saying is that people took their money and put it in tangible assets that would hold the value versus...
Yeah, but not it's important not just any tangible assets, because this is another popular thing you see commented in survival blogs and survival forums and such, is that just any tangible object is going to be worth a lot of money. That's not the case, because during those dire economy situations, people are very careful about not spending money. So even if prices do go up, that doesn't mean that if you have $10,000 worth of hammers, that you have $10,000. You have $10,000 worth of hammers, and you're going to be having to sell them in an economy that is collapsed.
Yeah.
So what are the odds of you getting back what you put into that?
Exactly.
Very little.
Yeah. So just because it's a tangible asset doesn't mean that it may be completely worth something at that time. Now, one of the things that I'm a big proponent of silver and owning silver and everything, but what about you? Did you have any gold or silver or anything
I wish
like that?
I had bought a lot of it before, but no. And of course, if you could
can you do me a favor?
If you could have a time machine and you could go back in time, I guarantee you that every single Argentine person in this country would have wished he had bought gold and silver with their money just before the economy collapsed.
So let me reiterate that, just so that everybody out there hearing, you wish that you had gold and silver on hand.
Not only me, every single person in this country, I can assure you 100%. Of course, we all wish we had saved our money in that way. So it's the only thing that keeps its value when everything goes down. It's the only thing you're absolutely certain. That's why I always tell people when they start asking, they sometimes send me emails and saying, okay, what happened in Argentina? Should I buy tools? Should I buy more food to sell afterwards? I always tell them, just put that money into precious metals, because that's the only thing that I absolutely guarantee you is going to be worth as much or even more money as it was worth before the economy collapses.
Amen. Thank you for acknowledging that. I mean, I'm glad that you're saying that, because I've been trying to tell my readers and everything that They need to have some precious metals on hand. They need to have some silver. I'm a big proponent of silver. Right now, gold is unattainable.
It's expensive.
It's very expensive.
It's not that gold is expensive because it's gonna keep going up in price.
Yeah.
The thing is that not many of us can afford gold, but we can afford a few pieces of silver.
Exactly. And so I tell people, buy silver now and start. And in fact, I love your suggestion. In your book, you talk about buying wedding rings. Expand upon that a little bit.
Good.
Talk about what you mean by buying a wedding ring and what you did.
Well, what happens is that as you see today in USA, and this wasn't going on in the US a few years ago, you're seeing people being very interested in gold. People buying gold. You see signs of "I buy gold."
Mm-hmm.
You see that a lot.
TV commercials.
We saw that. Sorry.
We have TV commercials running all the time. Oh, we'll buy your scrap gold.
Let me ask you: did you have those a few years ago?
No, not at all. No. Mm-mm.
Well, we didn't have those either. All of a sudden, after the economy collapsed, the "I buy gold" signs were up, and I looked into it a bit and learned that the gold business, buying and selling gold, went up 500% in Argentina after the economy collapsed.
Wow. So
yeah, there was a lot of interest, and as you say, that happened here as well. I buy gold commercials on TV and signs on the street. Almost every little jewelry store started making a business out of buying and selling gold. And since people here didn't have a culture of storing precious metal, what people ended up doing was selling their gold jewelry.
Yeah.
And that's something that, as most people here are either Spaniard or Italian immigrants, and it is tradition among us, and in many Latin countries and Mexicans as well, and South American societies, it's very common to give as gifts jewelry gold.
Yeah.
Because it's a way of preserving value. So
exactly.
I've learned that in many other cultures as well, very different cultures, in India cultures, giving gold is a way of storing. Historically speaking, jewelry gold was a way of having pieces of value on your body, even if you got pickpocketed or lost everything you had.
Yep. So what basically you have is you're carrying your money with you all the time, or at least a savings account of some sort.
Yeah. So what happened was that the business in that regard boomed, and what I mentioned in the book is that in such a situation, especially here in Argentina, where gold coins were not all common, you were much better off if you just needed a bit of money and you had put that into gold, to have a few pieces of gold jewelry and little gold chains that you had bought for spot price. Those you could sell and not raise so much suspicions and so much interest to yourself in an economy that was clearly going down, and a criminal situation that was clearly getting more dangerous by the day. You don't want to be the guy that has lots of gold in your house and that word getting around.
Yeah. So, like, one of the things that you talk about, though, is how you would go in and how you wish you had a lot of gold wedding rings. That if you were looking back, you'd have gold wedding rings and be able to at least take that in, trade it, get money, and then you'd have at least some form of savings in a sense.
Yeah.
And
back when I wrote up, people, you couldn't easily get a spot price for junk gold, as they call it, broken jewelry and such. So it's not a bad idea to have not an important amount of your savings, of course, but a small amount of junk gold and junk silver in pre-65 dimes.
Yeah.
I mentioned it in the book, considering it as pocket change, as post-collapse pocket change. That would be the purpose of it.
Yeah. So but you don't want to be walking around with like a big 1 ounce gold coin or anything like that.
And if you do, because it may end up getting to a point where you have to do that and end up selling gold. Just like we sell and buy dollars on the street, and it is dangerous. You have to be careful because you don't want to be the guy with money, because you're going to be a victim soon if that word gets around. You may have to do that, but you have to be careful when doing it. Doing it in places that you know are safe, have a fixed route of how you get into the shop, how you get out, no one following you. You have to be very careful when you do that.
It almost sounds like a complete logistics problem where you have to, security and
well, I know a guy that was, during the first days, you could actually see people on the streets, especially in the downtown district. They were called trees because they had dollars, green. Mm-hmm. So they were called arbolitos in Spanish. Uh-huh. And these tree guys were buying and selling dollars on the street because people, of course, had pesos and they wanted to put them into dollars so as to preserve their savings. Mm-hmm. And I know one of these guys, he got killed because, of course, he was dealing with money. He had a good amount of money on him, and they went after him.
Well, this kind of leads into my another question that I have. Here in America, everybody loves to, it's going to be the apocalyptic world. We're going to have, mutant zombies running all over the place and everything, and they always, it's going to be Barter Town like in Mad Max. And what happened there? Did Barter Town set up automatically and everything?
Well, we had barter clubs. If you had visited them, they did look a bit like Barter Town because they were awful places. I really don't like it. People that went to these barter clubs, they didn't like them themselves. Mm-hmm. They said that they consider it below themselves to end up doing something like that, to end up going trading goods instead of doing their jobs, which they were good at and were getting paid well. So the barter clubs were a momentary solution for a problem that had no other solution at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
People didn't like doing it, but they understood that at that time, when no one had a single buck, when there was no money on the streets, when you had 25% of unemployment and you weren't getting a job anytime soon, that was the only way to survive. But what happened is that soon enough, the barter clubs started using money because we ended up realizing, of course, that the problem of trading what you want for what you have for trade is unavoidable. So many of these barter clubs evolved into what we call ferias, like fairs.
Mm-hmm. Or flea markets or something?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, flea market type of thing.
Yeah.
But usually done in a warehouse of some sort, with good security so as to keep the people in there from being victims of pickpocketers and such. And we actually have one of the biggest ones in South America. We have one, it's called La Salada. If you look that online, it's huge. You can see it on Google Maps. It goes for blocks and blocks. It's enormous.
Wow.
And people come even from other countries, from Bolivia, from Paraguay. They come to this flea market and buy tons of clothes and go and sell them to their own countries as well.
Mm-hmm. So basically what you're saying is that your money did not disappear then.
No.
Okay. So it wasn't instantly overnight when the banks closed and everything. Everybody's, all of a sudden Barter Town opened up and everybody's trading bullets and some of these other things that you read in some of the other survival blogs.
Bullets are a complicated thing to use as currency because bullets are only good as long as they work. So why would you be trading anything of value for a handful of 9mm rounds that you don't even know if they were underwater or not? If they're just reloads with no powder in them.
Yep. So
are you gonna be putting apart every single round and betting your life on that handful of shells some stranger gave you?
Nope, I'm not. Not at all. So Bartertown, it came, it went, and everything, and you're still using the peso today and things, although it's taking more pesos to buy stuff.
That's the thing. It's taking more of them every passing year. We get more inflation. I think that we are like 400% inflation or 500% inflation compared to 2001.
So let's help my listeners understand. So what would be basically a week's worth of food cost there right now? I mean,
well, a supermarket cart full of ordinary groceries, nothing out of the ordinary. I'm not talking about having a few bottles of wine or liquor or anything expensive. Just ordinary food, spaghettis and a few canned products, some frozen vegetables, maybe a pound or two of meat, and the rest of the cart full with the typical things you will find: cleaning products, soap for the washing machines and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A full topped off cart would go for around 1,700 pesos, something like that, almost $500.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah.
Where? Okay, here's the next question: where does people get that sort of money?
They don't.
Wow. So people
you end up being poor. That's what poor means.
Wow.
At least in our standards, in South American standards, that's what being poor means. You just don't have that amount of money. So you end up buying a worse quality of food, and once even doing that isn't enough, you just limit yourself to buying food to stay alive and paying for some of the basic necessities, and that's how people live. That's what I'm saying, as I said before, that people here, especially the poor people, think about making enough money to keep them alive that day.
Wow.
And when you talk with them, they say, yeah, this day I made 40 pesos, 50 pesos, 100 pesos, but they talk on a daily basis.
Yeah.
The American person is going to be talking about yearly salaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here you talk about poor people talk about how much money they need to be alive that day.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So in essence, though, let's just make the peso and dollar 1-to-1. If our economy went down like yours did, so that would almost be equating paying $1,000 for a basket,
shopping cart,
a shopping cart full of stuff.
I mean, this isn't anything crazy. This isn't an out of the box scenario situation that we're thinking about. It's very possible that may end up happening in USA pretty soon. With inflation.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not going to be coming up with any strange suppositions, but I completely see how it could happen. A shopping cart full of food being worth $1,000. It could easily happen.
Well, I used to equate. I don't know. Do you have those little white plastic bags? Up here in America, everybody has these little white plastic bags in which you put your groceries in. And about two.
Yeah, we have some of the. One thing that happened was that so that people didn't feel so bad about them, they started making them smaller because that's cheaper, and you also feel you have more grocery bags.
Well, what I used to equate about 2 years ago when I'd go shopping, when I would put the bags into my car, I would count how many bags I had and then divide the cost of my groceries. Well, the average cost per bag was about $10 per bag. Now, and I just did this the other day, I was counting up my bags and then I divided what my grocery bill was, and it's gone up to about $25, almost $30 per bag. And I'm not buying anything fancy. And I'm not buying, cleaning supplies too. And now we have diapers and baby formula that we've got to put in there.
I have a baby as well, so in my shopping bag that I was mentioning before, there's a bag of diapers too.
Wow. That's amazing. But I see food prices going up already. And in fact, I'm sure that you see the news too over and over again. More and more economists are coming up and talking about how food prices are going up and all these things too. So it's just insane. Really.
It's happening, and it's being, one of the things that people mentioned to me as well, and I started receiving emails about it, is that they remembered when I mentioned that food packages were getting smaller.
Yeah.
And they were like marketing them as dietary versions, as weight saving type of things, as if they were doing you a favor for giving you less for the same price.
Why?
So all those little tricks, marketing tricks. That's just hitting inflation.
We were in Walmart the other day, and what we're noticing is more of the generic food products. No more they might be like one or two name brand, but then primarily what would be the generic food products. A jar of peanut butter. Instead of Skippy peanut butter, it's just plain old peanut butter, with a white label. I don't know if you guys have that down in Argentina.
Yes. Yeah, we saw, we do, we used to have lots of imports, and of course when the economy tanked, all that was very expensive, so we started seeing, as you say, tomato sauce.
Yeah, exactly. Generic foods. But we're seeing a lot more of that now at our grocery stores, and we're also seeing a lot of the smaller packaging, or they're taller and thinner. That was
that's great. That's a typical one, because the visual illusion is that you have something that is big, but I mean, these guys are very good at this, especially the marketing guys. They make this a nice silhouette that looks great, but it just has a bit less of product in it.
Exactly. And so, because we were looking at the cereals, my daughter wanted some cereal, and I looked at the box, and it's like, it's a big, thin, tall box, and it was like $3 just for this little box of food. And it was just amazing to me, and I'm noticing that more and more.
I was about to say that Kellogg's cornflakes, $3 for a box that has 100 grains of cereal in it.
Wow, that's insane. That is insane. What are you? Let's kind of fast forward today, or actually, what have you done? Because another thing that I know that you really focus a lot on in your book is crime. And basically how to protect yourself and being aware of your situations and everything. What are some of the things that you can tell my listeners and things, or what they need to do? What will help them tomorrow in regards to defeating crime or being aware of crime, or just what are some of the stories that happen down there?
Yeah. First of all, the important thing is understanding that even though the looting and the rioting and the footage of people getting shot with less than legal ammo during the protests and all that, and the cars being set on fire, it's all very impressive. But if you look at the numbers, it's not that many people that get killed. What I realized after looking into this a bit more, as I did this on a everyday basis, blogging, and such, is what actually kills you the most is a petty crime that takes place when crime levels go up in general. And this is dangerous because it's anonymous crime almost. People getting shot and not even showing up in the news anymore.
Yeah.
When you look at these numbers, you realize the amount of people that are getting killed here is ridiculous.
Wow.
And we're getting, I don't remember as much anymore, but I think it was like 20 people in the country getting murdered each day, something like that, because of violent crime. Most of this in Buenos Aires. In the provinces, it may go another 20 or so. It depends. But we saw a huge increase in the violent crime, and you really cannot trust reporters anymore, because in many cases they are owned one way or another by the government and the politicians that are responsible for all this. And what we see here is that some of the supporters of the government talk about a sensation of crime. That the sensation is just that is an illusion, but it's not real. But you still have the guys getting killed every day, so it's not as much of a sensation as it is an actual fact. One of these guys that talked about the sensation of crime, himself, he became a victim of crime. He got shot in the head and ended up in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And it was ironic to see someone that was trying to lie about the situation, saying it was just a sensation, becoming a victim himself. So you have to be very careful, and the thing is that it's easy to forget to do this, to be ready and be aware of your surroundings at all times, and it's easy not to think it's going to be happening to you. Now, but you have to be capable of defending yourself. I mean, in USA you have the option of being armed at all times. It's in the Constitution. We don't have that privilege, and many people ended up facing the ugly truth that you either carried a gun nonetheless to defend yourself and broke a law, or you just risked it and maybe got killed the same by criminals on the street. So what do you do when the law is making you a criminal, but you actually need to defend yourself?
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I'd carry.
Yeah.
So what, crime is getting bad there, and in fact I remember you talking about this one incident where a woman went into a bank, came out of the bank, and I guess she was pregnant also, and these thugs just killed her just for the heck of it. Because I think what's going to happen is we're going to see class warfare. Here in America, we already have class warfare. We have racial warfare in a sense.
We'll see hatred between those that have and those that don't.
Uh-huh.
And in USA, you have to also add to the equation the problem regarding race.
Yeah.
I mean, any excuse is good for people killing each other, especially when the economy is bad and people are upset. And there's a huge difference between those that have and those that don't have. It only gets worse for a few years when kids brought up in homes where they saw their parents spending maybe months or years unemployed and going through hard times, just hating those that have what was denied to them during their youth. The case you mentioned, that woman she's called Carolina. She's alive. She didn't die.
Oh, okay.
What happened to her was that an employee of the bank told he was working with the criminals. He pointed her out and he made her come back to the bank the following day. And when she left the bank with the money, one of the criminals, they followed her car. They chased her. She got intercepted, pulled out of her vehicle, and this criminal, he started pulling on her bag, and he just shot her in her stomach. She was 9 months pregnant.
Wow.
Or 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
And her baby, the baby got killed.
Wow.
And she ended up leaving the country afterwards because she was scared.
Now,
the thing is, that's a bit too late. When you wait until that happens to you and you end up leaving the country later, that's just a day too late to make the decision. We also saw the people that were victims of violent home invasions that sometimes get very ugly. They suffer these criminal situations. They suffer these incidents and get scared, and after that leave the country in a hurry.
Yeah. I look and often wonder, where would I go? And I really don't know anywhere else to go. I mean, what other country is there to go to? Now, in your situation, I know that you're of Spanish descent, so you go to Spain, or you have the ability to go to Europe or something like that.
If it gets really ugly in USA, you do have Canada just across the border.
But I think what's going to happen is that if it gets bad here, it's going to get bad there and kind of trickle down and everything too. But crime. So what are some of the things that you do to help? Like, do you take defense? I mean, do you carry? What do you do?
Well, I do my best to be able to protect myself at all times. I realize that you have to be able to defend yourself. That means going through actual training, self-defense training, firearms training. There's no replacement for that. Yeah. Even if you grew up shooting, like I know lots of Americans have, and they know their ways around guns, and they've gone hunting and shooting, and they can handle their guns safely. That doesn't mean you're ready for a violent encounter with a criminal. You have to actually train for that. Yeah. And you do, of course, have lots of good schools over there, so that shouldn't be a problem for most of you guys.
Yeah. No, we have like I know I've been through gun training, and you're allowed to have your carry and conceal here. And do you have carry and conceal down there?
It's about impossible to get. It's very hard to get. What a lot of people end up doing is carrying anyway, because when they know that, especially during if they live in bad neighborhoods, sometimes people make the decision to risk it and carry anyway. Yeah. Well, you can't legally carry knives, so knives are also something that I carry as well. And take training for that as well. You're not going to be able to know how to use it if you never were taught. And also something important is train physically as well. You have to keep yourself in shape, learn how to fight hand to hand as well. These are all things that involve a lot of time and training, and the benefits I see are not only just self-defense, but also in your health in general as well. What we were talking about before, the benefits of preparedness don't just involve situations that get this bad. Even if nothing happens, or even if the situation you're preparing yourself for the economic collapse isn't as bad as you thought it would be, even if it never happens, you're still benefiting from getting into proper shape. And there's also the advantage of not looking like an easy target.
Yeah.
The better in shape you are, the more capable you are to defend yourself, the less likely you are to become a crime victim.
Yeah. In fact, earlier on, before we started taking this call and doing this interview, we were talking about there's three kinds of people. There's sheep, there's wolves, and then there's sheepdogs. And people need to decide who they're going to be. The bad guys, of course, are going to be the wolves. Now, what you need to decide is, are you going to be a sheep and just let things happen? Because no matter what, if you're a sheep, you're going to get preyed upon. Or are you going to be a sheepdog and do something about it and take action and learn how to defend yourself and defend your family and so forth. So
and this isn't just this doesn't mean that you're going to be confronting everyone that comes your way.
No.
It just means that when the situation is clearly one in which you know you're going to be getting hurt and your loved ones are going to be getting hurt, you're actually able to do something about it. Some cases, if you're walking down the street, you have a gun on you and they want your wallet, by all means, do take the wallet. Maybe just leave me a few, just do me a favor and leave my driving license so I don't have to get over that as well. But this changes when this happens in your front door and there's a possibility of you getting shoved inside and things getting ugly. You have to make your mind up before you encounter that situation.
Yeah, as mindset, I write about mindset and talk about mindset also. Already making up your mind of what you're going to do beforehand so that you don't sit there and freeze.
You cannot carry a firearm or any sort of weapon at all if you're not completely sure of if you will be able to pull the trigger if it comes down to that. You cannot have a single doubt in your mind about it. And again, something we see here, criminals, kids that are maybe 8 years old, will you be able to do that? You have to make your mind before it comes to that. Because it may as well happen. It may as well be a few years from now, you may end up going down the street and a couple of kids that you wouldn't even consider a threat before end up pulling a couple of guns or knives on you. What are you going to be doing in that case?
Now, does that actually happen down there?
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Wow.
And it's when it comes down to them or you, I know that cops in some cases have killed kids that don't even have hair on their faces. They are just children with guns doing things their parents are telling them to do. But that little kid is still completely capable of ruining your life or killing you.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Yeah. So that's actually a picture that can happen here in the United States, folks, is that, child crime. I mean,
and one other little thing I wanted to add, all the bravado about, I'm going to shoot them all up, and if they come trespassing, I'm going to be shooting them and burying them in the backyard, shoot, shovel, and shut up, right? You see all this macho thing, and you just wonder, are you going to be really able to shoot a kid that is maybe 10 years old and is running through your own backyard, just stealing a couple of tomatoes, a couple of pieces of firewood? Are you really going to be able to put a couple of rounds into that kid? I don't think so.
No, but sooner or later, what's going to have to happen is that you're going to have to put a stop to something somehow. Otherwise, everything's going to be gone. But so it's interesting to hear these things and what's going on down there. What is it, if you don't mind me asking, if you don't mind talking about it? What do you carry? What you mentioned you carry a knife and everything. I mean, are there other things that you carry? I see on your website. You got the infamous key ring, with all your gear on it, and I laugh because I have one too, and so it's I've got a push knife on my key ring, I got a flashlight on my key ring, I got a little Swiss Army knife on my key ring, I've got some pepper spray on my key ring, at times I feel like I've got Batman's utility belt on with all the gear and junk that I carry. So what is it that you carry? What in your everyday carry?
I like the Glock pistols a lot. If I would be carrying, let's just say that's what I would be carrying if I did. So I really don't see something better out there than the Glock. And I take lots of classes. I'm actually a firearms instructor as of a few months.
Oh, congratulations!
Back. Yeah.
Good.
So I do see a lot of training and people using their guns in real situations as well. There's really no other replacement for the Glock pistol.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like it, just get the Glock nonetheless.
And I'm a big fan of the Glock also because a lot of people you got all these macho people out there, and at least I call them macho, who like the 1911, the 45. And folks, 8 rounds, maybe 7 rounds, and that's all you got. I like my Glock 19.
Maybe enough or not, you never know.
But having a Glock 19, you got, 15 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, and then you got a backup mag of another 15 rounds ready to go. So that's,
if you have something like mine, a Glock 31, you have 15 rounds of 357 SIG, pretty much the same as a 357 Magnum, 124 grain, so you do have a serious amount of firepower, and each round is going to be doing a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you allowed to carry hollow points down there?
Well, the legal status of that is not quite clear because you can use it. You're not supposed to use it for self-defense, but if you use it in a clear case of self-defense, it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you allege that that's what you had at hand and you had to defend yourself, then it may be okay. The problem may arise if during a shooting incident you end up hurting someone else.
Mm-hmm.
That may be making the situation even worse for you if you hurt an innocent person with hollow points. In a pure, strictly speaking, self-defense situation where you shoot a bad guy that broke into your house, hollow points are not going to be causing any problem for you.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
But the thing is that the police, they're not allowed to use hollow points. They only use full metal jacket, and we had situations where they shot through the bad guy and hurt someone else.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, full metal jacket would go right through the wall and everything, and especially in a home defense situation, that could even, go through your own wall and maybe into one of your kids or your wife or neighbor or something if you live in an apartment complex.
One thing it has going for it is that full metal jacket is not going to be as effective as jacket with hollow points, so you end up needing to shoot more to stop someone.
Mm-hmm.
That happens a lot here, that police officers shoot the guy a number of times, and it's surprising at some point because it's hard to explain how many rounds you need to stop someone, especially if it's just full metal jacket.
Because all you're doing is making clean holes through them.
Yeah, and once you look into this a bit more, you understand that what actually kills a person isn't the type of ammunition being used, but the place where they got hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key point in dying or not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, stopping is a different story. If you use jacket hollow points, you're much more likely to stop that person.
Mm-hmm.
But as you need more rounds to stop someone with full metal jackets, you're going to be shooting more times, and you're going to be multiplying the probability of hitting something that's going to be killing him.
Yeah.
Either heart, spine, brain.
Mm-hmm. So
jacket hollow point is not only better at stopping someone, it's also much more likely to have not having lethal results in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Well, do me a favor here. We are sitting just after an hour here, and I mean, do you got still more things to talk? Because I sure got a bunch more questions. Do you have time?
Sure, no problem. Okay. Whatever questions you have.
Oh, great. Well, one of the things I would like to talk about is, let's plug your book a little bit. Give the full title, where people can get it, and things like that.
Well, it's called The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse, and it's available on Amazon alone because it's a print-on-demand book.
Mm-hmm. I
didn't have any publishers interested in some of them suggested toning it down a bit because I actually got told that it was too violent.
Wow.
Some of the recommendations on self-defense. And yeah, I wasn't about to do that, so I went use the services of Amazon on Create a Space.
Wow, right. So you can buy it at Amazon, and what's the price?
Yeah, it's on Amazon at $24.95.
Mm-hmm.
Only through Amazon.
Okay. And folks, I've got it. I think I've read it like 3 or 4 times. I was just telling Fernando before we came on air that, my copy, it's all dog-eared, and I've got highlights all over it, and it's read rather, it's been through the reading. I've read it quite a few times. My father-in-law's read it also. But it's a great book. It's not like, Fernando is not promoting, some end of the world, Mad Max, I Am Legend situation. Because that didn't happen down there. And I don't think it's going to happen here in the United States either. I think that if we have some sort of financial disaster in one form or another, life is going to go on. You're just going to get used to the new normal, and people are going to go on, continue going to school, continue going to work. It's just people are going to adapt and overcome. And that's what's happened down there in Argentina is bad things happened. Their economy completely collapsed. And what is going to happen is you just get used to it and carry on, adapt, overcome, because that's just the way man is. And it's Hollywood who has sold us a bill of goods on the Mad Max, mutant zombies coming after you and all this other stuff, or I Am Legend, or something, and people bought into that. And historically, because I'm a big history buff, you guys know that, but historically, we've never had anything like that take place. I mean, even people talk about after a nuclear explosion. Well, look at Japan. I mean, that happened there. They didn't have mutants running around and chaos or anything like that. I mean, look at what happened. And this is why I've got Fernando on, because he's living it right now. Argentina has gone through it. They are still going through it. And I believe strongly that if America does have some sort of financial disaster and everything, that we are going to be a lot like what happened in Argentina. And so it's important that, guys, check out his blog, check out his book, and start really looking into what's going on down there.
Listen, folks, I want to thank Fernando for coming on this hour, and I just want to remind you folks to tune in next week for the second half of this incredible interview. This has been a lot of fun. We are going to be covering even more stuff than we talked about this hour. So make sure that you download, check it out, and check us out next week. I want to thank again Fernando for being there, and if you've got any questions that you want to ask Fernando, I want to get him back on for a Q&A. But to do a Q&A, I need some cues. That means questions from you folks. So make sure that you email them to me, info@propazine.com. That's info@propazine.com. Email me your questions, and I will get hold of Fernando again, bring him back on the air in a little bit of time, and we'll start asking him some of these questions. So, again, my name is Ray Gano, and you're listening to PZ Radio. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this show. We'll see you next week. Good night, good bless, and Maranatha.